Welcome to our first lunchtime talk for Fall Prevention Month. My name is Christiane Brown, and this is Tilak. He's a scientist here at Toronto Rehab, and he's going to be our first speaker. So today he's going to talk to us about a fall that happened right at our doorstep at Elm Street and University that we happened to catch on camera. So he's going to tell us a little bit more about what are different things that could have caused this fall, and also introduce a whole lot of topics that will be happening this month. So pass it on to Tom.
Thanks very much, Christiane. So thanks for joining us on this inaugural Falls Prevention Month talk. We will show you the video of a fall in just a second, but I want to just put a little bit of context on the problem that we're talking about. So this is the scenario that we like to think about a lot of the time. We think about older adults living at home and the challenges that they face. So imagine this couple, the husband, let's say he's just had an illness or an injury, maybe he's had a stroke and he's just come out of the hospital. Think about the challenges that these two will face. How do we keep them living in their homes where we know they want to continue to live, right? No one wants to go to a nursing home as they age. If you think about the scenario, you know, the wife in this scenario has suddenly been thrown into this role as a caregiver. She has all sorts of new responsibilities that she has to deal with, getting her husband up out of bed, into a wheelchair, into the bathroom, onto the toilet, into the bathtub, getting him dressed. We have to make sure, you know, if we think about how we support these people, we have to make sure that he doesn't fall and hurt himself, which is kind of the point of Falls Prevention Month. We have to make sure she has the tools she needs to make those things happen. So we know that we need to keep falls from happening, but we also know that exercise, you know, for them to be able to live at home and stay healthy, one of the most important things for them to be able to do is to stay active. So we have to make sure they continue to go for walks, get outside year round, regardless of whether there's snow on the ground or not. So we want to make sure we can, for them, we want to prevent falls, we want to encourage activity and mobility. So how do we do those things? Well, we know that older adults stop going outside once snow hits the ground, right? Once the winter comes and there's snow, people with disabilities and older adults often find it too dangerous to go outside, and for good reason. This is the fall that Christiane was alluding to that happened just outside our doors. So there it happened right there. You see it, someone fall quite hard as they're crossing over this snowbank. So there's some snow at this intersection, and you see the person get up and walk away without any injury. So we're pretty sure that that person was okay. But we can use this example to think about what can we do to prevent falls like that from happening so that people can get out and stay active and continue to live in their homes as long as possible. So you saw the fall, and if we think about what are all the different reasons that fall might have happened, I think there are sort of three categories that we typically think about. We think about things that have to do with the environment. So obviously there's some snow here, there's the design of the physical intersection that you could think about. You could think about what that person is thinking as they're going through. There's something to do with the individual as the second category. The things to do with the environment, things to do with the individual, or if they have a balance problem themselves to start with. They maybe they've had a head injury or a stroke and they have a balance deficit. And the third thing is what is the interface between the person and their environment that we're thinking about here. So in this case, footwear. So we'll talk about some of these different things, and over the next few, the next weeks and days when we're doing these talks, these lunchtime talks, we'll look at different aspects of these issues. But for now, let's focus on a couple of specific examples for this fall. So we said maybe footwear. Maybe it's something to do with that the person who's wearing poor footwear. It could be the person has poor balance control. It could be something about the design of the intersection of the sidewalk that they're working on. And we'll show you that we have research going on here at Toronto Rehab that tries to address each of those problems. And I'll give you some examples. So let's start with the footwear. So how well, I mean, for the moment, forget about the older couple that we saw in the picture, how well would your footwear do on a day like this? How confident would you feel if you had to go out on a day like this? Well, we have a program of research ongoing here. This is Dr. Yue Li, who will be speaking to us tomorrow about some of this work, that looks at how you evaluate footwear to make sure that it works when you need it to, so on ice and snow surfaces. And so as you can see here, UA is testing out a pair of boots that don't work particularly well. You can see her slipping around. And this is her trying to get up a slight rise. There's maybe a 1 or 2 degree incline here that she's trying to get up, and you can see that she's having real trouble getting up that incline. The trick is, and the problem is for consumers and older adults that live at home, is that when we go to the store to buy footwear, we don't know how well it works until we actually get out on snow and ice, and then it's too late. Then you already have the footwear there. Wouldn't it be great if, just like your winter tires, if the symbol that you see on the side that tells you that this material has been tested on snow and ice and it works and it achieves a certain standard, wouldn't it be great if footwear could have a similar symbol on it? Well, that's one of the projects that we're working on, and Yua is going to tell us more about her progress in that. She'll show you, she'll present to you some options for footwear that maybe if you were in a store you would be presented with, let you go ahead and choose which ones you think you would like to purchase, and then we'll show you how well they work using our Winter Lab footwear testing protocol, where we take this simulator. So Winter Lab is one of 4 simulators that we have down in our Challenging Environments laboratories here at Toronto Rehab Institute that are mounted on top of a hydraulic base. We can put people inside this 6 meter by 6 meter pod and have them walk up and down icy incline. So the pink area at the back here is an ice surface that this is our institute director here, Jeff Fernie, who really, it was his vision that came up with all of these simulators. You can see he's on a safety harness walking up and down these icy surfaces, and you can test how well those shoes will work by finding the limit for how steep an incline they can walk up. And in this case, you can see these boots stop at about a 6 or 7 degree incline. Yua will show you some shoes that we can create different ice surfaces. We can create wet ice surfaces, dry ice surfaces. Some shoes that can only achieve like a 2 degree wet ice surface. Others that can do a 20 degree ice surface. So the point is there's a huge range of performance that we know about. And so wouldn't it be great if consumers could choose their footwear based on that performance? Yua will also talk about some of the materials development we're doing to do even better. So there's materials that we have on the market today that are used in footwear outsoles, but we are now working to develop new materials that have different materials embedded inside it at the microscopic level, embedded in these surfaces so that they grip ice even better than the rubber and materials that we know about. If we move on to balance control, what can you do? How do you try to understand whether someone has a balance control problem, if they're likely to fall because of, say, a head injury or a stroke, if they have an issue with balance? Well, you can use one of our simulators that's called Falls Lab. You put someone on this big moving platform, jolt them a little bit, and you can try to understand, you can try to probe what is causing them to have a balance problem. Hillary's going to talk to us more about that in a future talk. Other things that we're going to talk about over the next few days that have to do with the individual things that might be causing them to be at risk of falls, things like vision and hearing loss, whether they have spinal cord injury, diabetes, depression. Different medications can put us at higher risk for falls, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and then what can we do in terms of exercise and therapy to help the individual or to reduce that risk of falls to the individual. We'll also talk about some products that have been developed here, including this one. Dr. Stephen Perry is going to talk about Balance Pro, which is an insole that has now been clinically shown to reduce the risk of falls in people that are at high risk of falls. We talked also about exercise and therapy. Keeping active, I mentioned, is so important for staying healthy in general and for improving balance. But we have to be careful with people who have challenges with balance. The types of exercise that they can do is very limited. So we have to think carefully about how do you keep these people active when they're at such high risk of falls. There are lots of falls prevention exercise classes like this that are around where you have to be seated or standing, holding onto things. Unfortunately, a lot of our research here has shown that's led by Avril Mansfield, has shown that if you don't challenge your balance, if you're hanging on to something or if you're sitting, you're not challenging your balance, And if you're not challenging your balance, you're not improving your balance. So there's a lot of work going on here that to try to understand what the best ways to train people and give people exercise are. And we'll talk about those issues. When we're talking about the environment, I mentioned the intersection, sidewalk design. We'll talk about that more in a second. But over the next few days, we'll be talking about how we can change the environment, how we can put grab bars and handrails in our environments, and what we can do to make stairs safer. These are all things that we have the ability to improve in our environments. And we'll show you the work that we're doing at Toronto Rehab to try to improve those things. Let's talk about intersections though just for a second. It's a bit of a crazy idea to put out there, but it's something we'd like to test out. We're all familiar with these curb ramps, right, in Toronto. When you have snow that melts, becomes slush, it becomes water, you get these pools of water that form at crosswalks, right where you're trying to get past through this intersection. Wouldn't it be great if those pools of water didn't exist, if we thought about a different way to make this intersection more passable, different design? We actually think that intersections might be designed upside down. So instead of sidewalks that come down through a curb ramp to meet the road, imagine a design where you have the road rising up to meet the sidewalk. So now people can walk across on the level. Snow plows can clear areas much more effectively where pedestrians are trying to walk, and cars go up a slight rise as they approach these intersections. It is really a very slight rise. That this is exaggerated in this image, but you can have this ramp extended out as far as you want and have a very slight rise. We don't know if this idea is necessarily a good one. We want to test it out at the intersection. We now have a councillor at the City of Toronto who is willing to let us test this on one of his intersections that needs to be repaved anyways. He's going to assign us one where we'll monitor it for a year in the winter, and then repave it with this design, monitor it again, and see what happens. At homes, I mentioned we can change. We'll talk about how we change our home environments to make them safer through some of the products that we've developed here. So this is called the Move Easy Kit system, and it's a set of vertical grab bars that we call them pressure fit because there's a nut here that you tighten, and these bars extend themselves between the ceiling and the floor. So there's no need to screw them in or to have a contractor come and install them. You can put these up very quickly yourself. Put up the vertical poles and then clip in horizontal poles horizontal handrails wherever you need, so that you can quickly create sort of a safe passage for someone to get them safe from the bedroom to the bathroom. So you're allowing them not only a reduced risk of falls, but you're improving their ability to move independently. So encouraging independent mobility, because this person now, a lot of people talk about how they're able to independently, they don't have to wait for their caregivers to come and help them out of bed when they need to go to the bathroom. So it's a big quality of life improvement, and it keeps them more active. The fact that just a simple pole next to the bed means that you will get up and move around more if you can do it by yourself rather than having to wait for someone to do that. We all know the bathroom tends to be a high-risk place for falls as well, and we're going to talk more about what those risks are. So Alison Novak and Emily are doing a special 1-hour webinar to talk about some of their work on making bathroom spaces safer with including the placement of grab bars like this. Where is the best place to put a grab bar? Alison and Emily are working on defining that so that they can be put into the building code so that it can be made safer. And Alison will also talk to us about stair safety. So moving up and down stairs, this is one of our labs we call Stair Lab that's mounted on the hydraulic base. What shape and size of, what dimensions of stairs are the safest? That's what she's trying to understand. She recently changed the building code by requiring stairs to be longer. Instead of 8 inches, they're now required to be 10 inches wide, and that will reduce the risk of falls on those size stairs by a factor of 3 to 4. Vicky is also working on looking at what shape, size, and position of handrails prevent the fall if you were to slip on the stair. What is the best size of handrail that is graspable so that you can prevent an injury if you do fall? So that's a peek at some of the projects that we're going to be talking about over the next few days. We invite you to join us every day at 12:30. Come in person here or join us online. So these talks will all be live broadcast on YouTube. And these are some of the groups that are working with us on this initiative, Falls Prevention Initiative. You can go to their websites and find out what they have planned. I'll turn it back over to Christina.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tilak. That was a very informative talk. Please come again tomorrow. We have another talk scheduled. Dr. Yui Lee is going to be talking about winter-fall risk and what research she has done to help reduce falls in the winter environment. So thank you. We have a tour scheduled today of our IDAPT research facilities. The next tour is scheduled on Wednesday, so please come on up for that as well. Thank you.